Hey guys, welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds by Nerds. I'm Nerdarchus Ryan, and today I'm joined by
Nerdarchus Ted.
Nerdarchus Dave.
And today we're going to talk about the Fae that slays the Redcap.
Hey guys, jump down to the description below where you can sign up for Nerdarchy the newsletter. It's a great way to get gaming tips as well as learn how to game with Nerdarchy.
So we're tearing back into Volo's Guide to Monsters on page 188. We have
the Redcap.
It's violent as fuck. It's a monster after my own heart. It just likes to incite gore and violence. And if you cause it to come to the material plane where the Feywild overlaps with the material plane and murder someone in hot rage, you might bring one of these guys to the prime material plane. And they're either going to be overjoyed and want to help you in your mission of causing mass carnage and chaos, or want to murder you outright. One or the other.
I love the fact that they grow at the bloody spot where a murder took place, and they start off as like a little mushroom, and at some point in time, like the mushroom essentially pops them out, and like they're fully clothed, weaponed, they're giant metal boots, like it's just like, okay, here I am. And then the last part into in the mercenaries, it's like, oh, if you're so vile and evil, you could actually draw a horde of these things to come work for you.
Well, and the other thing though is if you don't keep giving them bloodshed and violence, you will be their next victim.
Yes.
So it's a bit of a double-edged sword. I mean, the first sentence really sums it up. A Redcap is a homicidal fey creature born of bloodlust.
There we are.
Yep.
Says it all.
It is one of the few small creatures in the Monster Manual or Volo's Guide that actually has a high strength score.
Not only a high strength score, a friggin' 18. An 18 strength little guy.
Yeah, so
hysterical.
So they're pretty impressive. This book actually introduces quite a few new Dark Fays, and this just happens to be one of them. I love their special ability, their attack. Basically, they just run up to you and boot you. But they're
it says it knocks you prone. So if they're 3 foot tall, they're probably kicking you in the shins, but that's not what you want to do.
No, they're kicking you in the shins or the knee, but I think they're actually like kicking the front door style right in the nuts. That's what they do.
Big old metal boot. Boom.
Yeah. So, mind you, if you have a gang of these guys and one of them successfully knocks you prone, the others all get to attack at advantage while you're down.
And they actually make 3 attacks with their sickle. So, yeah, it could be vicious. Like, all right, we're just going to have one of them knock you over and the other ones go...
Now, I do remember in past versions of... It might have been 3rd edition or it might have been supplementary material from, like, Sword and Sorcery or something like that, where when they had the Redcap... As Redcaps, say, I think, killed people or something like that, they got stronger or more
They got stronger
effective.
or regenerated.
Yeah, so you could map some of those abilities on to make, like, these sort of, like, sanguine Redcap or something like that. So something to, like, you have your baseline, and then maybe something to add another CR or two to make them, like, these are, like, the elite, magical, really vile ones. The Blood Cultist Redcaps.
Well, I actually used... some of that mythology, and I did it to essentially Dorgar, so that they were more dwarf and would kind of incite Dave's ire.
You basically made them like the dwarves from the Corona campaign setting or world setting from the Demon Wars saga.
With a little bit of lime, very tasty drink to have.
The Prowies, which were basically, they also called them Bloody Caps or Red Caps as well, but they were basically dwarves that would do the same. Sailor dwarves, mind you, that would soak their caps, their magical caps in their victims' blood, and they would get stronger, and they had regenerative properties and whatnot. So these guys are interesting in the sense that how you're going to use them in your campaign. They're definitely, like, usually, like, the Dark Fae aren't quite so psychotic.
They're usually manipulators, schemers, where these are kind of like, you get to use them like you would use orcs in a way. They're like shock troops.
So it does say in here that rarely are they banded together. So this is supposed to be designed either as a unplanned, I want to just go hurt somebody with one of these things, maybe 2, because they happen to, be around a lot of murder, or you can really tie threads together and make a really interesting storyline why these things are all working together, who is behind it, and tie these into a storyline that's out there.
I'm thinking urban campaign, Jack the Ripper story, where you make one of these guys and basically, I mean,
He could be the Renfield to a Jack the Ripper character.
No, they don't even have to be. They are Jack the Ripper.
A dark and ghastly murder, when the Fae overlaps the material plane, would bring one of these guys to the fore, and he could be like the Renfield assistant to the Jack the Ripper character, or you could just have them.
So let me ask
They're
this.
natural born serial killers.
So let me ask this question. If you've got, say, an urban environment, and you've got a murderer, and he goes off and kills someone brutally, and it causes one of these things to spring up, and this thing starts to go out and murder people, is there anything to say that the murders caused by a Redcap isn't going to then spawn another Redcap?
I don't know that they can. I think it might take like a mortal committing murder to actually spawn.
Because I didn't see anything that specifically said it. Just like it talked about a murder being...
Yeah. It doesn't say exactly that can happen.
But it's kind of also that correspondence, the cohabitation of the Feywild and the Prime. So it's really a plot device to say, you as the dungeon master, if you want this thing to have happened, there's your explanation, and Bob's your own call.
Right. Yeah. I just, I think it'd be, something that could get out of hand really quick. It's like, okay, well, one showed up and no one stopped it. Okay, well, now there's more. And next thing you know, there's a horde of these things. There's no one left alive in the town, and they run to go seek, murder elsewhere.
I also like the idea of using these guys because their mentals are pretty decent. They're not dumb. I like the idea of, though they're not particularly subtle creatures, like, people might just assume that they're some strange offshoot of gnome, right? So you could have an entire gnome community massacred and overtaken by these, and they get rid of the evidence of it. And travelers are expecting to just have a pleasant experience going through this gnome village or town or whatever, or neighborhood. And they tend to not walk out once they do that. So these guys are smart enough to fake they're gnomes. They're just not the gnomes you would expect. And then all of a sudden they're just slitting your throat.
Yeah, I mean, they describe them looking like wizened old men or gnomes. So that definitely falls into that. When I was first reading them, I just kept thinking about Snow White and Seven Dwarves, and these guys would be the worst Seven Dwarves ever.
Well, you could do a homicidal take on the Snow White plot arc, and, Snow White and her murderous retinue of Seven Dwarves. Well,
yeah, it does say that, they do tend to work with hags, and hags like to employ them, so that would definitely kind of work.
That'd be an interesting little setup. So, what's your take on their whole boots? Is that something that you would follow suit with, or would you kind of want to rip that out?
These boots are made for stomping.
I kind of like the boots.
That's just what they'll do.
I think they're stylish.
So
I know you don't like them because of the lore.
To me, it's kind of weird to be like, all right, you either have to fully embrace it and have this thing skulking around.
Not skulking, stomping. It doesn't skulk.
Sorry. I mean, in a place where it doesn't have the obvious way of getting to you, maybe in a forested maze, and you hear the tromping, but you can't see it. So you've got this looming threat. And based off of the way the boots are stomping, the party's going to expect it to be some massive creature. And then you have this thing that's barely 2 foot tall. You go up around the corner, it's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah, Redcaps don't loom over anything. Mini loom. Because, they're about 3 foot tall. I mean, honestly, it could have been trampled by a dwarf.
But it runs around the corner, and you're expecting it to be massive, and it's it's tiny.
Yeah, the idea of teasing out that it's an ogre trudging through or something like that you can't see. Is an ogre magi? I mean, is it invisible? I don't know.
Of course, I think I'd rather fight an ogre than this thing. But
well, here's the other thing too: is when you said that instantly, I went, "Well, underbrush, right? If the high underbrush, you're not going to see them, but you're going to hear them, and it is going to sound like it." Or later on, I was thinking, well, what about if you're running, especially maybe a game in October, and you did a cornfield or something, because then you see the stalks all rustling where it moves, you hear the sound.
Yeah. But let's be honest too, on soft ground, there will be some sort of trudging. But it's a different experience than if you're in a dungeon with stone or cavern where you can hear like echoes, because the echoing would really mess with people.
Right.
Whereas if you're in an open field, that's going to like soften a lot of the sound. So it might sound like heavy footfalls, but it's nowhere near against cobblestone
Right.
or stonework or something like that. You can really have fun with the reverberations and echoes there, I think.
Back to our urban Redcap, where he's chomping through the alleyways, and you kind of hear the sound bouncing off the buildings.
So, or you just discount the whole thing, and
$3.99.
and you just don't you don't worry about getting into the tromping of the boots.
You're gonna need to get into the tromping of the boots, because once he goes and tromps on you with them, these boots were made for tromping.
Yeah.
That's just what they're gonna do.
Well, it's like, what are you going to do when the Redcap tromps all over you? Ooh, yeah.
So artistically, I like them. I know we had some discussion about the fact that they're supposed to be iron, they're iron boots, and the problem is that most Fae are kind of susceptible
To iron. In a lot of mythologies, like Fae have an allergy to iron, so
But that's
it's a little
not-
strange. But it doesn't have to be.
It's not. There's nothing tied into the D&D culture between iron and Fae, at least not in this edition.
Then the other thing too is the fact that Fae in mythology too often are able to craft things and create things through glamours and enchantments, and bring them into the real world. And they're real, but they're short lived. So I don't think they're affected by the things that they bring into the world in the same way. It's not true iron. So in that sense, though it may act and appear to be iron, it could be more like just part of their magical nature when they bring it forth.
And the other thing is what is their 3 days if they don't soak their cap, they just vanish as if they were never there. I kind of think that's kind of hysterical.
So really, they're like the fruit fly of the Fae world.
What do you guys think out there about the Redcaps? Have you ported it over to 5th edition before Volo's guide, as kind of I did, or are you excited about using this one in your game? Put your comments down below where you're at. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.
You can check us out over on Facebook.
You also find us over on Instagram.
So until next time, stay nerdy.